When you will be doing any type of analysis, diagnosis, all of those things which we discussed in the last chapter, organizational diagnosis, organizational analysis, you would need information. Yeah, you would need information, data. You would have to have that. Based on that, you will be able to diagnose, and if so, your diagnosis will be as good as your data collection. The better your data is and the better you can play with that, the better you will have the results, and based on those results you will be able to diagnose. It's just like input and output. The better data you have, information you have as the input, the more informed you will be, and the correct information, if you have it, then you will be able to do a correct diagnosis and all of that. So gathering and interpreting, yeah, two things. One is gathering data, gathering information, and then interpreting it. Yeah, and then you can link it with the discussion we were just having. So for example, critical assessment, can only do critical assessment if you are really have that correct information. Otherwise your assessment might be critical, but it's not that critical because it depends on false information, false data. This is what it is. Very simple chapter, nothing difficult in it. Most of the things you know these things already from other courses and even your own on life observations and so on. So for example, we spoke about in chapter number 7, last chapter we spoke about 12. We spoke about Burke and Litwin model, the last model we saw, yeah, which had 12 elements. So Burke, Litwin, the 12 elements of the model are defined in table 8.1 together with examples of the kind of questions that might be used to elicit information about each element. So in this chapter, they have table 8.1 and they are using Burke and Litwin model, those 12 elements, and for every element, what type of questions can be asked to gather data. So this is some exercise which you, after reading the Burke and Litwin model, trying to reflect on it, you might want to go in table 8.1. Here it is, table 8.1. Elements and indicative questions. So these are the elements: external environment, strategy, leadership, culture, structure, management practices, systems, climate, and so on. And for everyone, they have indicative questions. And from this, you can have your own list of questions also. Like, you know, Kevin was giving his example of his work where maybe the workers are not as motivated as they should be. So he's saying who should, is it that the supervisor or the person who is in charge of unit or in charge of that 12, 15, 20 people, they should motivate those workers, or the workers should get motivated. So you would find the element from the Burke and Litwin, and then you can look at the indicative questions or prepare your indicative questions to find out what is the reason why those people are not motivated. So for that, you would have to meet Kevin, you would have to ask him questions, you would have to ask the questions from supervisor, you would have to ask questions from the worker staff, you would have to make your own observations. Just go there and observe what is happening, what is the culture like, what are the dynamics of people working together, all of those things you might want to do. But in this example, they are taking the example of BBC staff survey. You know, it is a international news network, so they are doing it for that. So you can look into this and you know, reflect. And but more important thing is that they have indicative questions here, but this should help you to form your own indicative questions for the organization you would be trying to diagnose or analyze, and those. So this gives you a little framework to do that. Yeah. Methods for collecting information. What are some of the methods? You know these. Like if I ask you if you have to collect data, collect information, what are some of the ways to collect data? So I'm sure you will be telling me these same things which are here. So here they are saying individual and group interviews, questionnaires, projective methods, primary data, observations, use of secondary data, use of primary data. For example, Gentles in the earlier part of the session, Gentle was saying that he cannot find all the information online about the changes or whatever the companies are doing, local companies for your project. So then we said that yes, you're not going to find everything online, so you might have to talk with people who are, maybe go there, visit there, whatever you need to do, you might have to do those type of things. So that is how you would be collecting the data, and better your data would be, better you would understand the situation or dynamics of change, and then more maybe you will be able to give some diagnosis which will work, those type of things. Yeah, advantages and disadvantages for every method, you should think about it. For example, interviews are, there are some advantages, there are some disadvantages, you should think about that, in which situations interviews work, which situations they don't work, how much time it takes to do the interviews. Even if you are recording, you would have to transcribe the interviews, then you would have to take out the themes, then you would have to analyze it. um, so many things are there. Please read these in your own time, basic things. Pay attention to the examples which are given, like here, for example, very nicely they explain it. Uh, Pay attention to other things, like, what are the techniques they are maybe using to um, motivate them. For example, here, this is an example. Interviews can be very time consuming and costly. Yeah, so look at the positives and negatives of all the methods which they have mentioned. Questionnaires, for example, do the same for that. Projective methods, I don't know if you have heard this term or not. Please run a simple Google search on this, projective methods, what they are, but I can quickly explain you. This is very interesting way to collect information. Uh, for example, look at this. Drawings, collecting information about issues that people may find difficult to express in other words. So sometimes there are things which are maybe cannot be, like, there is a saying that a picture speaks 1,000 words. What can be explained in pictures sometimes cannot be explained in words. Like the pictures you take of yourself or situations or scenes. uh, you take a picture, you take a photo from your phone, and see how many things it is explaining. If you have to write that, or you have to explain those things in a written form, it will be difficult unless you are expert writer and really can write extremely well. um, for an ordinary person like you and me, picture sometimes is telling more things. Yeah, so that would be projective methods. Observations, just simple observations, just observing. uh, and then there are other methods, so look into this. Read into sampling, for example, sampling. um, Analysis, they are talking about qualitative techniques. You should look into that. Just get familiar that what are some of the different ways to collect and gather data. So for example, qualitative techniques, what are those? Content analysis. Yeah. um, uh, simple thing, like one time I was doing content analysis of from Gleaner, content analysis from Gleaner. So, for example, uh, I would look into the newspapers published in the last year, and look for some word. That word can be any word. For example, I can look for online learning, online teaching, and similar words. Teaching online, online teaching, online learning, virtual learning, all of these type of words. And then look for these words in the newspaper published in last year. And then from there, I would make a content analysis report that it is this word, these words are mentioned in the cleaner these many times, and then I can tabulate it for different weeks and different months. And but nothing to really worry about. You can do it physically, but you can also do it using some softwares that is called content analysis in a simple way. But there are different ways to explain what really is content analysis. Force field analysis. Yeah, for example, force field analysis. This is the diagram. A force field analysis. This is the in the middle is the present scenario. Yeah, present scenario. So what are there would be to change the present scenario in the middle, there would be some driving forces coming from this side, and then there would be some restraining resistance forces from this side, and both of these forces are going to decide where the new status quo would be. So for example, present scenario can be that people do not want to speak much in the online learning session, so they don't want to speak much. Yeah, so that is the present scenario. So driving force can be motivate them, or cut their marks if they don't speak, or shame them, or penalize them, or whatever, those are driving force. Or tell them that how beautiful the sessions would be that if everyone is participating, and we will be learning from uh, input from different minds and different experiences and all of that. So this is driving force. And then there is resistance, restraining forces. What are those? People think that they don't want to say something which other people might judge them if they say something, or they might say something which is not correct, and then other people would say, what is that? And then they are shy, and all of those resistance. So both of these driving forces and restraining or resistance is going to help in bringing this middle line to a either to a new status quo which is better, or it will keep on the present scenario, or it can be some case where it will not be, it will go to the worst direction also, depending on what is happening. So this is called force field analysis. Yeah, so there is a present scenario, some driving forces, and some restraining or resistance forces are going to help build the new status quo, or it will maintain like this. Yeah, like, so you can put any example on this. Let me think of some elections. PNP has been winning for many years, but then JLP won. So what were the driving forces and resistant forces while PNP was winning again and again and again for many years? So there were some driving forces, but they were not hard enough to change the present scenario. So that is why in the next election PNP would win. But then something happened, and then the driving force change, or we want a new government, or whatever was going on. You guys know what was happening. So then the driving force was more than the resistance for changing the government from PNP to GLP. So it changed. That is what it is essentially. Very easy diagram, force field, but you can do force field analysis for anything. This is the model. You can just anything which is happening in your life. Like for example, I consume a lot of Pepsi soda. So this is Pepsi is in the middle, Pepsi, and the driving forces I can write here, and the restraining forces I can write here. And then if I want to decrease or leave the consumption of soda, then my driving forces to leave that should be more than the forces which are which are not letting me stop it. In other words, restraining or not letting me stop my habit. So you can have any habit here, and then you can reflect on. So this way you can gather information also, because that is the chapter, gathering and interpreting information for diagnosis. So this way you can gather that information, like what is the present scenario. You can write the present scenario here, and then you can write after 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 interviews or observations or online searches, you can write the driving forces which are leading to this present scenario, and then you can write on the resistance here, and then over here you can have the worst scenario, and over here you can more desirable scenario. So in my case, a worst scenario would be that I start consuming more and more soda. And the more desirable scenario is that I would leave the leave the leave the consumption. That is something which you want to do. Someone is, yes, Kevin, please go ahead.
Yes, sir. Based on the diagram that you presented, the driving force would cause the present scenario to go up or down. Which one of them causes it to go up or down? Or it doesn't really matter?
Sorry, could not hear you properly, but I trust you said that driving force would make it up or down. So it can be either way. It can lead the situation towards, if it is greater, then it will lead it to more desirable scenario. But if it is less, then it might stay as present scenario, which is status quo, or you might fall into some worse scenario. It can be either way, depending on how the driving force and the resistance is balanced in that situation. So answering your question, it can be either way. Yeah. Okay. Quantitative techniques, um, like mean, standard deviation, correlation. So what I wanted to say in this discussion, or whatever you want to call it, is that those courses which you do in mathematics, statistics, they are also very important. Um, um, so don't take them lightly. Pay attention to those things, at least the basics. Um, they will help you in managing change also, because many times when the reports are there and you have some mathematical calculations where you are trying to understand, of course some expert can make you understand, but still, if a little understanding, which I'm sure you have, like positive correlation, negative correlation, one is going up, like Kevin was just asked that, is it, I think maybe I'm wrong, I think he said that, is it just one direction or it can be both ways? Yeah. So then what is positive correlation, what is negative? One is increasing, the other is also increasing, or one is increasing and the other is decreasing. Yeah, or both are increasing and both are decreasing. These correlations, terminologies, you might want to reflect on those, and details on these can be found in any standard text on statistics. Yeah. So maybe you would want to. And then interpretation, they are talking about interpretation. So the table I showed you, table 8.1, that was BBC staff survey. So they have tried to link it with Burke and Litwin model. So please again look into that. Um, and then table 8.2 is going to give you a very brief summary, right here, a very brief summary of the results of the survey are presented in figure 8.2. Like what were the results like from this? So they have They have these are essentially it seems the same picture, like external environment on the top, strategy, leadership, culture, and then transactional ones, management actions, climate, work unit climate, motivation, task. So it's the same picture as Burke and Litwin. But if you see closely, these things which are written below them, like for example, lack openness, high bureaucracy is culture. Yeah, motivation, staff not motivated or committed to achieve organization goal. So these are some of the findings from the BBC survey. So now you can look at this and see which one falls under what, and what are the issues they have, and maybe how they went about solving them. Yeah, so I think after reading um, the Burke and Litwin model explanation in the last chapter, which was chapter number 7, you come here and you look at this diagram, figure 8.2, and then look at this. It won't take long. It's a 5-minute thing, because you know these things. It's not something very difficult, and they explained it very easily. Yeah. Let me go back. So here I was, and political considerations. These can now really frustrate you. Political consideration can really frustrate you. You really need to think about data. For example, this one, data collection uh, can generate energy around the activities or behaviors. For example, look at this one. It opens up the possibility of comparing the current performance of an individual or group with their own past performance, with the performance of others, or with some benchmark. These possibilities might be perceived as threatening, especially where there is a link between performance and reward. So people might, once they have this data, they might comparing your past performance with the current performance. If it is going down, they might want to. So, and all of this is now going to be linked with the rewards or punishments or whatever is happening in the organization. Yeah. So this can be a challenge. Very interesting example they have given in this section. Uh, Please read the section carefully after the picture, and you are going to see a very interesting example. Please read this section, this one, and you will find the example very nicely. They have spoken about tightening certain bolt first. Yeah, please read this example. And then there is this exercise 8.1, short activity. If you want, you can take it, but of course in your own time. So this chapter was just looking at how you can gather and interpret information. BBC example is given. Different methodologies for collecting information, like questionnaires and projective methods, um, collecting information from observations, um, then content analysis, force field analysis. To critically understand the data, you can do that. And then they have given in figure 8.2 the results from BBC staff survey. You can look at that. So Burke and Litwin picture will be more clear. That is it for this one.